Okay, let's set a scene. You're on the ward, it's incredibly busy, and an email lands in your inbox that just, well, it makes your stomach drop.
Okay.
It's from a big corporate employer,
Right.
and they are demanding, and they still use that word, demanding all the mental health details for one of your inpatients.
And the patient hasn't consented.
Exactly. They're too unwell, or they just haven't given any permission at all.
That is the absolute classic professional dilemma, isn't it? You have this external pressure, this demand to just sort it out.
Yeah.
But your primary duty, your GMC-aligned duty, is to your patient's confidentiality. That's non-negotiable.
And that's exactly what this deep dive is all about. We're going to translate all those complex rules from the GMC, the ICO, the Caldicott principles into a clear, actionable plan, a defensible plan. This is your shortcut to really mastering when and how you share information. Okay, so let's unpack this.
Well, when you're in that moment under that kind of pressure from, say, an employer, you need an anchor, a sort of professional safety net.
A framework.
A framework, exactly. And the mantra that underpins all the high-scoring answers in these scenarios is really just 5 steps. It's check the purpose, confirm capacity, seek valid consent, share the minimum necessary, and document it.
So everything flows from that.
Everything. Every single thing we're about to discuss comes back to nailing those 5 steps.
Okay, so that's the roadmap. But to even begin to use it, we have to start with the most fundamental distinction, which is what kind of consent we're even talking about.
Yes. This is the absolute core of it. The difference between implied and explicit consent.
Right.
If I could get you to write down just one sentence about this whole topic, it would be this. Confirm their capacity, get valid permission, share the absolute minimum securely, and write down what you did and why.
Simple as that.
But that whole process starts by clarifying the purpose of the disclosure. Is this for direct patient care, or is it for something else, for a third party?
Okay, let's break that down. Direct care first. So I'm thinking, my hand over to the nurse, or asking for a physio review, or just discussing the case with my consultant.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's all direct care. And that kind of sharing is generally justified on a need-to-know basis.
Okay.
And here's the crucial legal bit. In the UK, that sharing relies on the common law duty of confidence, which allows for what we call implied consent.
Implied consent. So the patient just sort of expects us to talk to each other to keep them safe.
They absolutely expect it. They imply their consent by seeking treatment from a team.
And this is where that big exam trap comes in, isn't it? The idea that you need to get, I don't know, a GDPR form signed before you can hand over to the night team.
It's such a classic trap answer. Demanding specific UK GDPR consent for routine, direct care is just wrong. It misstates the law, but worse, it actually gets in the way of safe care.
It creates barriers.
It creates bureaucracy where it's not needed. You're already covered by that common law duty.
So direct care, the bar is lower. It's based on need to know and this implied consent. But what about our employer? Or a relative who's asking for an update?
Right. The second you step outside that immediate care team, so relatives, employers, police, media, research, the standard just shoots up.
It's a different category.
It's a non-care purpose, and that almost always needs explicit, informed consent from the patient or, some other very clear lawful reason, like a court order.
So getting your head around that split, implied for direct care versus explicit for third parties, that's the key to avoiding the 2 biggest mistakes.
Which are?
Well, either oversharing to people who have no right to the information, or, on the other hand, blocking necessary clinical communication within the team.
That's it. And once you've figured out, okay, I need explicit permission here, the next question has to be, what actually makes that permission valid, especially for health data?
And this is where it gets really interesting, because health data is, what's the term? It's special category data under ICO and GDPR rules.
It is. Which means a quick nod in the corridor is not going to cut it.
So what are the qualities? What makes consent valid?
It has to have 5 critical elements. The permission must be voluntary, informed, specific, documented, and withdrawable.
VISDW.
Exactly. If even one of those is missing, your consent is invalid.
Let's just touch on 2 of those that seem like common failure points. Voluntary and specific.
Good choices. The voluntary test fails if there's any pressure at all. So imagine a relative literally standing over the patient, sort of looming, as they're being asked to share records.
That's coercion. Invalid.
Instantly invalid. And specific is just as important. Think back to our employer. They demanded all mental health details.
Which is way too broad. It's not specific at all.
Completely. So the high-scoring action is to go back and say, we need specific consent for a narrowly defined piece of information, not the whole history.
Right. Something like maybe an expected return to work date, perhaps.
Exactly. The consent has to be narrow. It has to be for a specific purpose. And because it's special category data, it must be explicit. So a clear, unambiguous statement, often written down.
And of course, these rules are all anchored in the bigger picture from the GMC and the Caldicott principles. What are the core guidelines there?
The big one, the one that covers everything, is justify and minimize. You have to be able to justify why you're sharing anything.
And then share the least amount possible.
The absolute minimum necessary information to achieve that purpose. Never just send the whole record by default.
That feels like it should be the simplest rule, but I can see how, in a rush, it's so easy to break.
So easy. The second principle is security. The information must be kept secure. This is why you see all those trap answers about communication channels.
Like using your personal phone.
Using personal messaging apps, unsecured email. It's a huge professional breach. You've got to verify who you're sending it to and use an approved channel.
And then there's the no surprises rule.
Yeah. I like that phrase for it. That's Caldicott Principle 8, transparency. Patients have a right to be informed about how their data is used and what choices they have.
Which links directly into the National Data Opt-out, or the NDO.
It does.
People get confused by this one. What's the key context for the NDO?
The NDO is only for when data is used beyond their individual direct care. It doesn't stop you sharing information for their treatment.
So it's for things like research or planning.
Exactly. Service planning, commissioning, population health research. If your disclosure is for one of those beyond care purposes, you have an obligation to check for and respect the patient's NDO choice.
Okay, we have the principles. But when the phone is ringing, what's the actual stepwise sequence of actions that keeps you safe? Let's walk through that high-yield framework.
Right, this is the practical bit. This is the checklist that ticks all the boxes.
Step 1.
Clarify purpose and capacity. First question. Is this direct care or a third party? That sets your consent standard. At the same time, you're confirming the patient has capacity to even make this decision.
Okay, step 2.
Seek specific, explicit consent. If it's a third-party request, you have to talk to the patient. You explain exactly what will be shared with whom and why, and you document that conversation.
The key being specific.
Absolutely. Then step 3 is the actual sharing.
Right.
Share the minimum necessary via secure channels, only the absolute minimum. Never copy and paste a whole summary. Only use approved, encrypted NHS email or systems.
And then the last 2 steps are all about accountability.
They are. Step 4. Document, document, document. Was consent given or refused? The date, the scope, who you sent it to. That's your professional defense right there.
And finally.
Step 5. Honor withdrawal. Make sure the patient knows they can change their mind at any time, and you must be able to stop any further sharing the moment they do.
That's such a clear process. And to help remember it, the sources give us a couple of mnemonics. Let's start with Consent 5.
Yeah, Consent 5 is great for checking the quality of the permission. So it's capacity, objective info, narrow and specific, secure sharing, and entry, as in a record in the notes.
CONSENT.
That's the one.
And then we have Ask MIN, which is more of a practical checklist.
Exactly. Ask MIN is your workflow. Ask permission, scope it, keep it to the minimum, make it secure, and put it in the notes.
Ask, scope, keep, make, in. I like that.
It's easy to remember in a crisis.
So what does this all mean when we hit those really difficult edge cases? Let's talk about the scenarios that are designed to trip you up, maybe where the patient can't give consent.
Right, so lack of capacity. This immediately brings the Mental Capacity Act 2005 into play, if an adult lacks capacity.
Meaning they can't understand, retain, use, or weigh the information.
Right. Then the decision-making process shifts completely. It moves from patient autonomy to what's in their best interests.
And best interest isn't just a vague feeling, is it? It's a proper process you have to follow.
It's a very formal process. You have to involve people close to them, consider their past wishes, choose the least restrictive option, and you must clearly record why you believe sharing the information is in their best interests.
Especially if it's for their immediate safety.
Absolutely. That record is your justification.
And what about children and young people? That's always, for me, the hardest area.
It requires a completely different lens. For anyone under 18, you apply Gillick competence to see if they have the capacity to make this decision for themselves.
So you're assessing their maturity and understanding of what's at stake.
Exactly. Can they grasp the complexity of it all? the implications, the alternatives.
So if say a 15-year-old is Gillick competent, you have to respect their decision about sharing info with their parents, even if the parents don't like it.
Precisely. If they are competent, their refusal is binding. If they're not, then you turn to parental responsibility, but always guided by the child's welfare as the paramount concern.
Okay, let's talk traps. What are the classic pitfalls the exams use to catch people out?
Well, the writers test four main failures. Number one, misstating the legal basis. That thing we said at the start, demanding GDPR consent for direct care. It's wrong, it blocks care, it scores badly.
Trap 2 is oversharing, I imagine.
Yes. Sharing the full patient record or very detailed diagnoses with relatives just because they ask. It breaches that minimum necessary rule every time.
Trap 3 is about technology.
It is, using insecure channels. The classic is being asked to send a quick photo of a blood result on WhatsApp to a colleague.
Which is a huge no.
A massive failure of your duty to keep data secure.
And the final trap.
Failing to check for the national data opt-out when the data is being used for planning or research, you have to respect that choice.
Let's bring this all back to our opening nightmare. The employer demanding all mental health details. The patient has capacity, but is refusing consent. How do we rank the options?
Okay. The highest scoring action is always to engage professionally without breaching confidentiality. You reply in writing, you acknowledge their request, but you state very clearly that you require the patient's explicit, specific, and voluntary consent.
So you put the ball back in their court, but you also protect the patient.
Perfectly put. You explain that you'll discuss the scope with the patient when they are well enough, focusing only on necessary information, like their fitness to work. It respects autonomy and professional boundaries.
So any option that involves just sending a summary straight away or having a quick chat on the phone?
Scores very poorly. The patient has capacity and has said no. Those actions ignore that completely. The employer's needs do not trump your duty to your patient, ever.
To really embed this, let's think about the language we should use. This isn't just about an exam, it's about sounding competent in real life.
That's a great point. You need model phrases. For direct care, you can say something like, "For your safe care today, I'll be sharing information with the immediate clinical team on a need-to-know basis."
And for a third party?
You'd say, "Before I can share anything with your employer, I need your explicit and specific permission. We'll agree together exactly what minimum information is appropriate to release."
We've covered a huge amount of ground here, from that basic implied versus explicit split all the way through to the complexities of the MCA and Gillick.
So let's lock in the three main takeaways. First, direct care sharing is justified by common law, not specific GDPR consent. Don't fall into that trap.
Second,
Explicit, specific consent, that VISDW model, is mandatory for almost all third-party sharing.
and third,
Always show the minimum necessary, use secure channels, and document every single decision meticulously.
it seems the golden rule is always that sequence. Purpose, then capacity, then valid consent, then minimum and secure, and finally, document. The frameworks, Ask Meta Me N and Consent 5, are there to help you do it.
Right. And just to leave you with something to really think about, we spent this whole deep dive on sharing with consent or in best interests. But what about the ultimate conflict? Imagine a patient with full capacity specifically refuses to let you share a life-saving piece of information like a severe allergy with the A&E team they're about to be sent to. What principles could possibly justify overriding that refusal? And how on earth do you document that decision to show you're still acting to prevent significant harm?
That is the absolute pinnacle of the Professional Balancing Act, isn't it? Autonomy versus a fundamental duty of care. Applying these principles, these frameworks, is the only way to navigate that. It's about keeping your patient safe and protecting your own professional integrity.